Agriculture is the science and art of cultivating plants and livestock for the purpose of food or fibers for everyday use. Agriculture systems have existed for thousands of years. These systems were the key components to sedentary human civilization compared to those of nomadic hunter-gatherers. Seeds that were collected over the years were planted for sustainable growth and food. Animals were added to the landscape for the critical diversity that they provide. In the United States, small-scale subsistence agriculture systems were essential to self-sufficiency of early settlers. Things continued this way until the advent of advanced transportation and infrastructure and the booming rise of industry. The Industrial Revolution of the 1760s reflected the rising market economy and free enterprises. People and families moved to urban cities that provided wage work in factories and apartment-style housing. This social shift changed agriculture forever. A large population of people in cities were no longer connected to the production of their food, putting more pressure on a decreasing population of family farms. This was the emergence of farming and agriculture as an industry that could generate profit. In the South, plantations were devoted to single crops such as cotton, tobacco, and sugar that could be exported to meet growing demand in Europe. Monoculture on eastern farms was damaging to the soil and demanded westward expansion. Infrastructure advancements allowed for this expansion and distribution of commodity crops domestically and globally. Commodity food had the ability to be processed for longer shelf life. In an increasing amount of instances, food no longer came right from the backyard garden or the neighbor down the road's ranch. It was purchased at a market or a store where questions about the food's origin need not be asked. This trend continued through the 20th century and is still applicable to today. The newly expanding free trade agriculture system left lasting effects on society. Social life was changed as urban individuals became increasingly disconnected from food origins. Today, many wonder if this disconnect is related to poor food-related decision-making that has contributed to preventable chronic disease. If people grew their own food, understood the effort that it takes to procure that food, and then prepared it to enjoy for themselves, would they overeat? Would they cringe at the processed food on the shelves at modern-day supermarkets? At the advent of industry, farmers were met with increasing incentives to produce more food to meet global demands. It became especially important to cut costs of production in order to increase yields and decrease prices to stay competitive in the global scheme. As time progressed, government farm subsidies on commodities became available, and they did favor large farming operations that focused on just a few crops. The economic impact of expanding agriculture and efficiently run farms was prosperous. However, farming is a risky business, as so many aspects of nature are unpredictable. Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal introduced insurance and risk coverage for farmers in case surpluses plummeted prices. These policies have evolved over time but still exist today. Loan assistance programs favor farmers who produce commodity crops, and they are offered as an incentive to maximize crops like corn, soybeans, wheat, etc. Some believe that the Farm Bill's assistance programs favor large animal feeding operations and massive monoculture farms because those are the businesses that can yield the most food at the lowest price, which is better for U.S. trade competitiveness. An unintended consequence is that many of these farmers are accruing debt. Plus, small family farmers with diverse livestock and crop operations are at a financial disadvantage. While modern agronomy has become a lucrative, globally competitive industry, its impact on the physical environment has unveiled trouble. Many first-generation American farmers were unskilled. Single crops were planted without rotation until the soil was exhausted. Grass was not sown for hay, so animals could not forage the land, and manure was not returned to reinvigorate the earth's nutrition. In more recent times, large farms producing one or two crops have dominated agriculture. Feeding operations raising animals for the sole purpose of slaughter has also become the norm. Agricultural operations that lack biodiversity must compensate somehow, and it's generally in the form of synthetic fertilizers and chemical pesticides. This type of farming is not only associated with soil depletion and pesticide damage, but also with excess water use, water pollution, expenditure of natural resources, climate change, and decreased food quality. Shifting gears to assess the consequences of this on the nation's nutrition raises questions too. Can unhealthy soil provide healthy food? The answers are not black and white, but it's a question and another possible consequence worth thinking about. There is no doubt that agriculture systems have produced harmful consequences for human health, environmental health, and the economic prosperity of individual American farmers. Farmers and politicians alike are needing to respond to these effects with an alternative vision. There are many opinions on this political and ethical topic, but two particular ones gain the most attention. The global competitiveness argument endorses government support of farmers, transportation infrastructure, export assistance programs, and bolstering American crops to maintain the large stake in global economics. This view sees the massive value of agriculture in the American economy. The contrasting view is the sustainable agriculture vision, which endorses environmental quality, ecological sustainability, conserving natural resources, and economic viability of small-scale, diverse farms. Though the sides sound polarizing, they actually hold an essential common ground. As farmers become more market-driven, they must recognize that short-term productivity, profitability, and income achievement are unsustainable. Not enough attention is given to the management of natural resources, which that relies on. Global competitors must see how sustainable farming methods will allow for sustainable economic growth and prevent obliteration of resources and financial disaster. Wasteful farming may produce fast profits, but it won't sustain long-term efficiency and productivity. And sustainable agriculturalists must find a feasible solution that combines aspects of big agriculture operations and small biodiverse operations to maintain competitiveness in the economy. Ecological agriculture, or agroecology, is an emerging area of opportunity in farming. It is a method of farming that embraces biodiversity by optimizing and recycling resources while minimizing input in order to maximize a wide-ranging yield and feed the growing population. It also favors a market-driven economy because over time, profits, productivity, and income will increase without threatening the Earth's habitability.
I think that the Cuban example again shows the way of what the role of urban agriculture is going to be, because when the Soviet bloc collapsed, the imports of pesticides and fertilizers and petroleum especially went down 80% in the island. So they had a huge problem of bringing food from the rural areas to the urban areas. And urban agriculture was born, and there's 50,000 hectares of urban agriculture in Cuba, producing on an average of 15 to 20 kilograms per square meter of food with agroecological methods. And is proving to be providing about 30 to 35% of the food that is consumed in the major cities, of not just vegetables, but also protein in the form of poultry, some pigs, eggs, milk, things of that nature. So definitely urban agriculture is playing a major role in terms of closing the circles of consumption and production, reducing the food miles, emissions, everything that you can imagine, and also bringing social aspects to the cities that did not exist. Now, the other aspects that are very important that people don't realize, that in addition to providing food, this urban agriculture can have major impacts on the quality of life of the people in the cities. For example, in Brazil, there has been a lot of studies done showing that small cities surrounded by sugarcane plantations are 10 degrees hotter than cities that are surrounded by small farms. In Japan, they've done studies where they show that cities that are surrounded by small farmers using organic methods of production have cleaner water than those that are surrounded by large-scale agricultural systems. So there's so many benefits that we need to think about beyond just the access to nutritious food, the environmental benefits, the social benefits, the cultural benefits that come with peri-urban agriculture.